Hey, this is Sober to Stay's quick fix. Today, four words. Keep it simple, stupid. Or if you don't like stupid, simple and straightforward, or short and sweet. And there's a reason the slogan's been hanging in church basements and meeting rooms for 50 plus years. Not because it's a clever bumper sticker, but because almost every disaster in your life, including the one you're worried about right now, got built on a foundation of assumptions that you treated as facts. Here's the actual principle underneath the slogan. 700 years ago, a monk named William of Occam came up with a tool we now call Occam's razor. The rule is brutally simple. Well, I mean, it's kind of complicated, but this is my oversimplified version of it. Among competing hypotheses or explanations, the one that requires the fewest assumptions usually wins. That's it. That's the whole thing. I mean, not the most dramatic explanation, not the one that confirms your worst fear, the one that needs the least scaffolding to hold itself up. And here's how it works in real life. So let's say I walk in the door and my dog doesn't come running. Two possible explanations. Number one, she's dead. Number two, she's old, she's lazy, and she's taking her sweet ass time. Which one assumes more? Number one, way more. It assumes a sudden catastrophic event with no evidence. It ignores her entire history of being slow and is based on the thing I'm afraid of, not the thing in front of me. Number two basically assumes nothing. It just describes what's been true every other day for the last 10 years. So Occam says go with two. And I, and probably you, keep either choosing one or have a rich history of choosing one. Why? Because we're addicts, because we're codependents, because we're human beings and our brains love drama. And that's the whole problem. We live in a constant state of building stories on top of facts and then reacting to the stories like they're facts. I call this gap filling. Not the most romantic title, but it's what I got. You get a piece of information, right? She didn't text back. He was short with me. My mom seemed off. And instead of leaving it as a small, neutral piece of information that it is, you fill in the gap with a story. She's mad. He's done with me. My mom thinks I'm hopeless. And once the story's there, you start reacting to the story. The reaction creates the outcome, and the outcome confirms the story. Say that again. And once the story's there, you start reacting to the story. The reaction creates the outcome, and the outcome confirms the story. And the whole thing was made of nothing. So let me give you a real example. So I'm going to need you to recognize this in yourself. So well over a decade ago, when I was still a psychopath, I used to be the kind of guy who would drive past my girlfriend's house at 3 a.m. to see if her car was there. 3 a.m. drive-bys. Total creepy madman. Fair title. But I was in a jealousy chokehold. The pattern was always the same. She didn't pick up the phone for a few hours. I start filling in the gap. It's probably her ex, right? I'd work myself into a frenzy. I'd leave abusive voicemails. I'd break up with her over text. Eventually, she'd call back completely confused because she'd been at the movies with her friends, right? The relationship would limp along for a while, but eventually would end, right? Because of nothing, because of a gap that I filled in with the worst possible story and acted on it like it was real. If you've never done this, congratulations, you are a saint. But most of us have. It might not be jealousy. It might be, the sponsor didn't text you back and you decide they're done with you. It might be that your boss, whose tone seemed off in an email, and you spend the whole weekend convinced you're getting fired, and then maybe you quit. It might be your kid who didn't call this week, and you decide they're using again. The shape is always the same. A piece of information walks in alone. Your brain insists it can't be alone. So you build it a family of assumptions and then react to the family. There's a brilliant line in Al-Anon that fixes this in just a few words. And it's this: no news is no news. Love it. No news is no news. It's not good news. It's not bad news. It's nothing. The absence of information is not itself information. You don't have to fill it in. You're allowed to just not know things. And there's another piece of this, and it's the part that it gives me the most chills. Most of the time when you're losing to someone, your partner, your kid, your sponsor, whatever, the guy in the car next to you, you're not actually losing it on them. You're losing it on someone they remind you of. Let me tell you a story about these two coworkers who got into a screaming match, almost came to blows, almost lost their jobs. And after the dust settled and they actually talked, it turned out the first guy wasn't really angry at the second guy. He was angry at his own father, his abusive father, his cowering mother, his helpless childhood. And he saw that in the second guy. And the second guy triggered all of it. And well, as for the second guy, he just found out in the morning that his wife had cheated on him and was leaving with the kids. He wasn't yelling at anyone in the room. He was yelling at his life. Two people in a parking lot fighting each other when neither of them were actually fighting each other, speaking from their pain instead of speaking to the other person's pain. And this is one of the most important sentences in recovery, so I'm going to say it twice. Speak to their pain, not from your pain. Speak to their pain, not from your pain. Almost every fight you've ever had, right, was speaking from your pain to someone who is also speaking from theirs. And the two of you somehow, I guess, expecting a result of connection or resolution, or I don't know, but it doesn't. It can't. Two people speaking from their pain is just two megaphones aimed at each other, and nobody hears anything. The fix is just what I call zooming out. Picture this, right? You're looking through one of those telescopes on the pier. You know, sometimes you got to put a quarter in them, sometimes they're free, but whatever. And you see a woman and her daughter on a capsizing boat. Now you're panicking. They're going down. They're going to drown. You're zoomed all the way in. You can't see the whole boat. You can't see the helicopter hovering 20 feet above with two rescue divers on a winch about to pull them out. You're operating on incomplete data and reacting to a story that has nothing to do with what is actually happening. Zooming out doesn't change the boat, but it adds the helicopter. So now the fix. Again, 3 steps. Step 1, catch the gap fill. All right, the gap fill is anywhere your brain has gone past the actual information and started building its story, right? She didn't text back. That's the information. She's mad at me. That's a gap fill. All right. He was short on the phone. Information. He's about to fire me. Gap fill. My sponsor didn't ask how I was doing. Information. She's given up on me, right? Gap fill. The first sentence in each pair is data. The second is a story you wrote on top of the data. And your job isn't to disprove the story. Your job is to, I guess, notice the seam between the data and the story and to recognize that you crossed it. That's the fact. The rest is something that, well, I guess I just made up. Step 2, apply the razor. Once you caught the gap fill, ask the Occam question. What's the explanation that needs the fewest assumptions? She didn't text back. The fewest assumption explanation is almost always she's busy, her phone died, or she'll text later. The maximum assumption explanation is almost always a catastrophe your brain just sold you. And they're not equally likely. They're not even close, right? Your brain just told you they were because catastrophe is more vivid and your brain confuses what's vivid with what's true. For some reason, it loves the vivid. So pick the boring explanation. The boring explanation is right almost every time. No news is no news. You don't have to know yet. And step 3, speak to their pain, not from yours. If you do end up in a hard conversation with a partner, parent, coworker, sponsor, whatever, try this before you say anything. Take a beat. Ask yourself, what might this person actually be carrying right now that I don't know about? Not as an excuse for them, I'm not saying that, but as a zoom out. The coworker who has snapped at you might have just gotten the worst phone call of their life, right? Your partner who was distant might be dealing with something they haven't told you about. Your kid who didn't call, I mean, they might be ashamed. Speaking to their pain instead of from yours, it doesn't mean letting people walk on you. It means showing up to the actual conversation that's happening instead of the one your nervous system is rehearsing. Hey, you okay? Something seemed off. All right, that sentence that ended more fights than any sentence in the English language. So try it before the one your pain wants you to say. So keep it simple. Stop assuming. The dog isn't dead. The car in the driveway isn't your worst freaking fear. The text that didn't come is just a text that didn't come. And the person in front of you, more often than not, is fighting a battle you know nothing about. You don't have to figure everything out. You just have to stop adding to it. See you soon.